I want to show you some simple preparation steps that I've done in my life in terms of ensuring that my family's safe regarding food sustainability. And that involves several factors. One is having a food storage supply. One is having the ability to grow food. And also an important piece is the ability to have a steady and stable and independent power supply. I think frequently about the stories of Eastern Europe, where World War II decimated the population, leaving only about 75% of the pre-war population alive. These were amongst some of the most educated people in the world, left to roam for food, without shoes in the bitter cold winters of Eastern Europe. I think of the individuals with PhDs in physics and engineering that at the end of the Soviet Union, when the Soviet USSR empire collapsed, they were left as janitors in their newly immigrated to states. So I think there's some ways that we can ensure that we're prepared long term. And I think that denying the fact that we will inevitably face challenging situations, whether it's an electromagnetic pulse or a coronal mass ejection that takes out our power systems, or to see food supplies weaponized. All these things have happened, and they will happen. We depend on a fiat currency, the dollar, as a global reserve, tied to the petrol dollar. We've seen some destabilization of that. Yesterday, in fact, we saw world markets shaken by rumors of potential recessions in the United States. But nobody really ever thinks what happens if the fiat currency loses its intrinsic psychological value. Well, what are we going to do? So I just wanted to show you my food storage system and what I came up with to solve the potential issues. A food storage system by itself is not viable in terms of sustaining society. But what it does is it's a stopgap. And that stopgap enables society to basically have some spring in it to absorb, or almost like a shock absorber, to absorb problems that come about. So I have a couple different spots in my house. This is one of my food storage rooms. It's about 300 square feet. And, we do a lot of canning. But I think a real important factor is when you're planning for food storage, it's cost effective. And let me explain why. So here's an example. I think a lot of people heard about the challenges with toilet paper with the COVID-19 shutdowns. Now, we had plenty in stock. And the reason we had plenty in stock is when something goes on sale, it's usually a 20% discount. And even if you have credit cards, you go in and buy your supply of that product at a 20% discount. And let's say at least my credit cards are about 10% annual interest. Then even if you bought that strictly on those low interest credit cards, you're paying 10% over the course of a year for products that you're saving 20% on. So you're actually coming out way ahead, even if you have to buy on credit. So it does work out. So just a few things as we look around this food storage system. Really everything you need. You buy the bulk items when they're on sale. For instance, you buy a cow, or half a cow in our case. Then we have two freezers. We have this deep chest freezer and another one in another room. And we picked up those deep chest freezers for $50 each from garage sales. It doesn't have to be expensive. Grain is an example. So in October, our grains come on sale here locally, and they have bulk storage sales where you're saving a good 20% on your flours, on your cornmeals, your oats, things like that. So there's a lot of financial incentives to have a good food storage. And if you have that food storage, you can weather those challenging storms that have occurred and will occur, and very likely, judging from the winds of change globally, will likely occur in our respective lifetimes. So let me show you some other food storages. Now, I want to be clear, though, before I do that, in addition to my food storages, so I do have a 32-acre parcel that I grow greenhouses on, and I have land. And I picked that up fairly inexpensively, about $1,000 an acre in 2017. But that property also has 13,000 square feet of premium greenhouse space. And I figured out a way to build them so that I could do it for free. And in a subsequent video, I'll explain how to do that. You don't have to pay a lot of money. You can if you're willing to be smart about it. And I'm not talking about using government grants. There's other ways you can do it if you're sly about it. The other thing is I picked up I have a house, another bug out location. It's completely off grid. And just to ensure there's no chance of problems. So at both my farm and the other house, I have completely off-grid power, off-grid water systems, etc. But let me continue on with food storage because, no matter what happens, let's say that you have a shutdown, supply chain issues, people will starve and riot after 3 days without food. So if you have a food supply, not only let's say a year's supply of food, not only do you have the capacity to support yourself, you have the capacity to support your neighbors and friends. And it may sound inexpensive, but how much cheaper is that in giving food away to your starving community than to face the challenges and parallels that riots would inevitably cause, burning down your building, violence, things like that. So it's a stopgap that establishes peace. It's not hoarding. Saying it's hoarding would be mocking our ancestors who had a cellar and who benefited certainly throughout history, but during wars or even the Great Depression. Let me show you some other things that I have that you might find interesting. So one thing I have here, this is a mushroom growing room. And I don't have any mushrooms growing now. I've done it before. It takes a lot of labor, but I have all the substrate necessary to do it. I also have it's what's called spawn. It's basically the mushroom roots, let's say. So I have the capability, a HEPA-filtered gloveless box, I guess. It's positive pressure on the inside through a HEPA filter. But then I have several of these rotatable cabinets and all of the necessary supplies to grow mushrooms. And it's kind of an involved process where you have to sterilize substrate and then apply the spawn to it. It takes a lot of time and labor. I don't have time for that. And that's why I don't have mushrooms growing, but certain varieties respond very quickly in this kind of an environment. This is a kind of a split-level basement location. This is another one of our $50 freezers from a garage sale, loaded to the hilt with supplies, meat, etc. But I think this type of a process is sustainable because you can take garbage and you can transition it to food. And I have other videos I've put on this YouTube channel in the past on how to do that. So when I built this kitchen, I added a 100 square foot pantry. And I did that because it provides a lot of convenience in terms of close food storage. The food storage room we were just in is at the end of our house. But this gives us another 100 square feet that we can store materials that are more easily retrievable and on hand. And I find that very convenient. In addition to our 200 square foot kitchen, where food is also stored in our refrigerators and other locations or cabinets. So for us, for our family, we can easily sustain ourselves for at least a full year and assist our neighbors with their food needs. In addition to this location, I've also been fairly strategic I have probably another half ton of wheat in dried canisters stored or secreted. And I guess the point is all these things are meant to sustain us in hard times, and hard times will inevitably come. It's an absolute logical probability that it's going to happen, probably in our lifetime. And it'd be very unwise not to, in some way, be prepared. Clearly, not everyone can have this level of food storage that you see here, but it'd be very easy to have 3 days' supply of food, bug-out bags, things like that. Those are very convenient to store. And another point, I have some videos that show my various greenhouses and my other home. But I thought it'd be beneficial to show this. I think there's ways to do this inexpensively and to be smart about it. I appreciate your time for watching this video. I hope you have a great day.